St. Andrews Hall, Detroit, February 18th, 1987, 10:47 p.m. The air inside the venue was suffocating, thick with sweat, smoke, and the electricity of 8,000 souls packed into a space meant for half that number. Purple spotlights cut through the darkness like alien beams, and in their center stood Prince, lost in the guitar solo of Purple Rain. His eyes were closed, his small frame draped in a flowing purple coat that made him look like some otherworldly prophet. The Telecaster in his hands sang notes that seemed to pull tears directly from people's hearts. This was Prince at his peak, untouchable, perfect, vulnerable in the most beautiful way. Then Steve Morrison jumped onto the stage. The 22-year-old obsessed fan had been waiting 6 months for this moment. In one violent motion, he grabbed Prince from behind, trying to pull him to the ground while screaming, "I love you! Why don't you love me back?" The guitar crashed to the stage with a metallic shriek. The microphone hit the floor, sending feedback howling through the speakers, and 8,000 people watched in stunned silence as their purple god crumbled before their eyes. Minneapolis, October 1970. Prince was 12 years old when it first happened. 3 older boys cornered him behind Lincoln Elementary during recess. They called him weird, a freak, too small, too feminine. When Prince tried to walk away, they shoved him hard against the brick wall. His head cracked against the concrete, and he felt something break inside him that had nothing to do with physical pain. From that day forward, Prince couldn't bear unexpected touch. His body would freeze, his mind would scatter, and he'd become that 12-year-old boy again, helpless, terrified, alone. His father noticed the change. His teachers noticed. But nobody understood that the boy who would one day command stages and seduce millions was learning to build invisible walls around himself, walls that would both protect and imprison him. By 1986, Prince was arguably the biggest star on the planet. Purple Rain had conquered the world, selling over 13 million copies. But fame brought its own terrors. Fan letters turned darker. People followed him home. Women threw themselves at his car. And somewhere in suburban Detroit, Steve Morrison was building a shrine to Prince in his basement bedroom, cutting out every magazine photo, recording every television appearance, convinced that if he could just get close enough, Prince would understand that their love was destiny. Morrison had dropped out of community college after seeing Prince perform at Joe Louis Arena in October 1985. Something about that performance had rewired his brain permanently. He quit his job at Radio Shack, spent his savings on Prince albums, concert bootlegs, and anything purple he could find. His mother watched helplessly as her son transformed from a shy, awkward teenager into something she didn't recognize. He talked about Prince constantly, as if they were personal friends. He practiced conversations he imagined having with him. He wrote letters he never sent, 43 of them, each more desperate than the last. Morrison began following Prince's tour schedule obsessively, driving hundreds of miles to attend concerts in Chicago, Cleveland, Indianapolis. He always tried to get front row seats, always tried to make eye contact during shows. He convinced himself that Prince had noticed him, that there was some kind of connection building between them. After the Chicago show, Morrison waited by the stage door for 6 hours in freezing rain. When Prince's limousine finally appeared, Morrison ran alongside it, banging on the windows, screaming, "I love you," until security tackled him to the ground. But instead of discouraging him, the incident only intensified his obsession. Prince had seen him. Prince knew he existed. Now he just had to prove his dedication was real. The morning of February 18th, Morrison drove to St. Andrews Hall at dawn. He waited outside in his rusted Chevy Nova for 14 hours, watching roadies load equipment, watching sound check, watching Prince's limousine arrive at 6 p.m. Security noticed him but didn't intervene. Just another obsessed fan, harmless enough. Chuck Williams, Prince's head of security, walked the venue one final time. "Everything's under control," he radioed to his team. He had no idea that Morrison had studied YouTube footage of the venue's security gaps, had timed guard rotations, had planned this moment for months. Backstage, Prince sat in his dressing room, staring at himself in the mirror. Something felt wrong. He couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would be different, dangerous somehow. His hands were trembling slightly as he applied his eyeliner. The face looking back at him seemed smaller than usual, more fragile. He'd been having nightmares again, flashes of that day at Lincoln Elementary, the feeling of being cornered, helpless. Dr. Susan Martinez, his therapist, had warned him that trauma had a way of surfacing during moments of vulnerability. You perform thousands of concerts, she told him, but your subconscious is always scanning for threats. Prince reached for his purple coat, the one that made him feel invincible on stage. But tonight it felt like a costume, a disguise that might not hold. He could hear the crowd growing restless through the thin walls. 8,000 people who expected him to be a god when he felt barely human. His phone rang. It was Alan Leeds, his tour manager, calling from the hallway. "Boss, we're running 5 minutes behind. You ready?" Prince looked at himself one more time, at the small man who somehow commanded stadiums. "You all right, boss?" asked Alan as he entered the dressing room. Prince nodded, but his eyes said otherwise. The makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion, the weight of carrying everyone's expectations while fighting his own demons. When he walked to the stage, past crew members and equipment cases, he felt like he was walking toward execution. The concert began beautifully. "Let's Go Crazy" ignited the crowd into a frenzy. "Purple Rain" brought tears. Prince seemed to relax into his element, feeding off the crowd's energy. But during the third song, he spotted Morrison in the front row, a thin young man with intense eyes who never looked away, never smiled, never moved. Just stared with the kind of focused intensity that made Prince's skin crawl. Something about that stare felt familiar, predatory. By the time Purple Rain began, Prince was fighting panic attacks between verses. The guitar solo was Prince's sanctuary, the place where he could disappear into pure music and forget the world existed. His eyes closed, his fingers found the notes that would make angels weep, and for 90 seconds he was invincible, until Morrison struck. The impact came from behind, arms wrapping around Prince's waist, pulling him backward, the weight of another human being sending him crashing toward the stage floor. The 12-year-old boy inside Prince's mind screamed. His guitar flew from his hands, clattering across the stage. The microphone hit the floor with a piercing shriek of feedback. Morrison was sobbing, clinging to Prince like a drowning man. "I love you so much. Why won't you love me back? I've waited so long. I've been so patient." Security guards rushed the stage, but they were 10 seconds too late. Prince was already broken. Prince crawled to the corner of the stage, his purple coat torn, his carefully styled hair disheveled, his eyes wide with terror. 8,000 people watched their idol become human in the worst possible way. Morrison was screaming as security dragged him away. "You don't understand. We're meant to be together. I'm your biggest fan." Prince grabbed the microphone with shaking hands. "I can't," his voice cracked. "I can't do this anymore." He tried to stand, tried to walk off stage, but his legs wouldn't support him. The crowd murmured uncomfortably. Some people started to leave. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was witnessing a breakdown. Then Walter Jazz Johnson stood up from the third row. The 67-year-old retired pianist had been watching the whole scene with the wisdom of someone who'd seen everything music could do to a human soul. Jazz had played with legends: Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Billie Holiday. He'd seen genius up close, understood its fragility. He'd watched too many gifted artists destroy themselves because they confused their pain with their purpose. Tonight, watching Prince crumble on stage, Jazz saw his younger self, the sensitive kid who'd been broken by the world's cruelty and spent decades learning to heal. He walked calmly toward the stage, his weathered hands steady, his movements deliberate. Security guards approached him, but something in Jazz's bearing, a quiet authority earned through decades of living, made them step aside. He climbed onto the stage with surprising agility for his age and sat down next to Prince without saying a word. For 30 seconds, they just sat there together while 8,000 people held their breath. Jazz could feel the young man's pain radiating like heat. He'd felt that same desperation once, that same terror of being truly seen. "Son," Jazz said quietly, his voice somehow carrying through the venue, "that man ain't your enemy. He's your mirror. He's showing you something you need to see." Prince looked at him with red, confused eyes, seeing this stranger who somehow felt familiar, safe. "What?" Love that's become poison because it's got no place to go. You ever love something so much it hurt? Prince nodded, thinking of his music, his fans, the way caring could become a prison. That's him. That's you. That's all of us. Jazz gestured to the crowd. But love ain't supposed to hurt. Love's supposed to heal. And sometimes healing starts with understanding that the person hurting you is hurting too. Show him what healing looks like, son. Show all of us. Something shifted in Prince's expression. The terror faded, replaced by understanding. He stood up slowly, his legs steady now, Jazz's words echoing in his mind. Morrison was being held at the side of the stage, still struggling, still crying, his face streaked with tears and mascara that had run from his own eyes. He'd worn makeup, trying to look like Prince, trying to become him. Prince walked toward him while 8,000 people watched in absolute silence. Security moved to intercept, but Prince held up his hand. Chuck Williams, his head of security, looked confused. This went against every protocol they'd ever established, but something in Prince's eyes told him to trust. Prince stopped in front of Morrison, this broken young man who tried to steal what he thought was love. Up close, he could see himself in Morrison's desperate eyes. The same hunger, the same need to be understood, the same terror of being alone. Morrison was hyperventilating, his words tumbling out in gasps. I just wanted you to see me. I just wanted to matter to someone. I've been invisible my whole life, and your music made me feel alive, and I thought if I could just touch you. And then Prince did something that no one saw coming. He embraced him. The contact was electric, terrifying, healing. Prince felt Morrison's body shake against his, felt the young man's desperation transform into relief, into recognition that someone finally saw his pain. Why do you hurt the thing you love? Prince asked softly, the question barely audible, but somehow picked up by every microphone in the venue. Morrison collapsed in Prince's arms, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you so much and you don't even know I exist. And I've been so lonely and your music is the only thing that makes sense. And I thought, Prince held him tighter, feeling his own walls crumble. I know you do. And I know you're sorry. I see you now. I forgive you. For 90 seconds, they stood there together. The superstar and the stalker, the hunter and the hunted, both discovering that they were just two broken people who'd forgotten how to love without hurting. Prince picked up his guitar and walked back to the microphone. His voice was different now, softer, more human. This is what love looks like, he said to the crowd. Not ownership, not obsession, understanding. He began playing Purple Rain again, but this version was unlike any he'd ever performed. It was gentler, sadder, more honest. He sang it for Morrison, for himself, for everyone who'd ever confused need with love. When he reached the final chorus, 8,000 voices joined him in perfect harmony. There wasn't a dry eye in the building. Morrison was taken to Detroit General Hospital, where he spent 3 days under psychiatric observation. Prince quietly paid for his treatment, arranging for 6 months of therapy and medication. He never told the press, never used it for publicity. When Morrison was released, he sent Prince a letter. Thank you for showing me the difference between love and hurt. I'm learning to love myself now, so I can love others the right way. Morrison never attempted to contact Prince again, but he recovered, found work, got married, had children. Years later, he would tell his kids about the night a famous musician taught him that real love meant letting go. The incident changed concert security forever. The Prince protocol became industry standard, psychological screening for obsessive behavior, early intervention programs, and most importantly, training security staff to recognize the signs of fan obsession before it turned dangerous. But perhaps more significantly, it changed Prince himself. The man who'd spent 15 years afraid of human touch began reaching out to his audience in ways he never had before. He started meeting fans after shows, signing autographs, allowing himself to be vulnerable. The walls he'd built after that childhood assault finally started to come down. Prince never released the song he wrote about that night, though bootleg recordings surfaced years later. The Night Love Won was a haunting ballad about the moment when choosing compassion over fear can transform both the giver and receiver. In interviews, Prince would only say, "Sometimes the person who hurts you the most is the one who teaches you the most about yourself." When Prince died in 2016, Walter Johnson, then 86, was one of the few non-celebrities invited to the private memorial service. In his eulogy, he said, "That boy taught me that night that healing don't come from hiding from the hurt. It comes from walking right up to it and giving it a hug." Steve Morrison, now a successful therapist specializing in obsessive disorders, sent flowers with a note. "Thank you for saving my life by forgiving me when I didn't deserve it." Real power isn't about dominating others or protecting yourself from their brokenness. It's about having the courage to see your own wounds reflected in their actions and choosing love anyway. Prince understood that. 8,000 witnesses saw it, and somewhere in Detroit, a man who once confused obsession with love learned that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't your attention. It's your compassion. What wound in your own heart are you ready to heal with love instead of fear?